Welcome everyone. My name is Aditi Rastogi. I am represent Path Infotech and I'll be moderating the webinar today. I would like to thank all of you for joining us. This is a second webinar in continuation of our integration webinar series. The topic of today's webinar is first star in the day of a CTO. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. Your lines will remain muted during this session. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your control panel. The question answer round will be at the end of the session and we will address your questions at that time. The session is getting recorded. The link would be shared with all the participants post the webinar. So let us begin today's session with a quick recap of what we covered in our last webinar, first hour in the day of a CXO. We have spoken about how integration is helping CXOs in making better decisions and driving improvements across the organizations. We also touched upon three main pointers: the impact of insufficient actionable insights, what CXO should focus on for efficiency improvements, relevance of access to real time data. Looking at the feedback we received, we are bringing more sessions where we will be deep diving into the different aspects of integration. Can we move to the next slide? So as we mentioned, the first webinar was for CXOs. This one is for the CTO and so forth. We are coming up with next series of webinars. So today's session will be on the importance of integration in the CTO's life. And we are highly obliged to have our two wonderful speakers for this webinar. We have with us Gaurav Sharma. He's the CTO of L&T Financial Services. With a vast experience working in the technology sector, having held prominent positions in leading organizations across industries, known for his innovative solutions, business acumen, and top-notch technical capabilities. Gaurav is held in high esteem by colleagues and industry counterparts. Hi, Gaurav. How are you?
Hey, I just got disconnected. Just joined back.
Yeah. Gaurav, I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you now.
Yeah. Hi, Gaurav.
Reset
Welcome
on
to
my
this
side.
session.
Yeah.
Great to have you here. We also have Tarun Agarwal, Director Technology at Path Infotech. Tarun is a technology enthusiast with great people management skill. Tarun has a broad experience of 30 plus years in the industry with 29 years as a director at Path Infotech. He is looked up as a visionary leader and great mentor and is held in high esteem both by his peers as well as juniors. Hi Tarun, how are you?
Hi, Aditi, and Gaurav, welcome to this interesting webinar on integration. Good to have you as one of our guests today for this webinar. How are you doing, Gaurav?
I'm doing very well, Tarun. Thanks a lot for inviting me and sharing my views on this interesting topic.
Great. So from here, Tarun, I would request you, without any further delay, to take the lead from here and give us all an insightful session. Over to you, Tarun.
Thank you, Aditi, and Gaurav, once again, welcome to this webinar. And hi, everyone. This is the second in the series of webinars that we are doing on integration, and I would again try to recap on what we did the last time. Is typically in our daily lives, we definitely play two different personas, one from a personal perspective, the other from a professional perspective. And if you look at all the logos and all the applications on the screen, you would find that each one of us would have used some, either a personal app, or it could be a office related application or a platform or a service. What is actually making these platforms work? The underlying technology or underlying platform is pure play integration, be it actually ordering movie tickets, or it could be as simple as ordering food, or doing, let's say, a social interaction on the various platforms like Facebook or Instagram, or making payments for your services, or buying any goods on Amazon or any of the Flipkarts or eBay portals. All that requires a very huge amount of integration between various subsystems. It could be as simple as order processing, it could be as simple as logistics. On the other side, from a professional perspective, obviously all of us would be starting with mail messaging when I start the day. Gaurav, from your perspective, you would also be ensuring that all your critical systems from a business perspective are all online, they're up and running. You would be ensuring that people are able to connect and they're able to deliver what they want to do from their role perspective. So, Gaurav, I would like to really have your views. How do you relate the personal and the professional life from integration and data perspective?
Tarun, actually, two thoughts sort of come. One is that all the personal apps which you see on the left side of the screen, which we consume, essentially are sitting on top of our enterprise platform. So, in some ways, the right side is more like the platform which is enabled through APIs. So that both the words really are, maybe the two layers of a same ecosystem. That is one thing which comes. Second thing which sort of I have been finding very interesting in the last few years has been that how a lot of applications which essentially start as B2C get adopted in enterprise world because of the large developer momentum around them. Uh, Two, three examples are the whole G Suite, whether it is Gmail, Google Drive, and all. It started purely as B2C, of course, and then has now become a mainstay of Google's cloud play. Second thing is, which is like a established success story, is Amazon. So Amazon's data center, of course, were meant to cater to their own business and then moved as a AWS service. And recently, I've seen Slack. Slack has initially completely adopted by developers and not bought in by CTOs. Now it's become a mainstay of enterprise business. So I can see that between the left side and right side, there are a lot of interplays, and success in one of them sort of leads to another. And yes, the connecting tissue is integration. So I think that is the topic for today.
Yeah, very interesting, Gaurav. I think it's a very good insight that you have provided, especially on the professional front, and very easy to say as of in today's world, whether I'm working in office or whether I'm actually work from home in today's world. Uh, all these applications or all these platforms are all interconnected. I think that is where the crux of I think every CTO today would be, how do I make my application work with all these social platforms or all these integration from a payments gateway perspective? Maybe how do I bring the social inside my organization? Maybe how do I post something onto Facebook, or how do I actually post a requirement or a information or some sort of a content on LinkedIn? I think, Gaurav, these would be one of your core requirements today from business perspective.
These are, Tarun, and I'll just sort of take cue from you and give two examples. So, LinkedIn right now gets used to post a lot of employee motivational messages, employee engagement messages, even new hires. So, one is looking for integration of LinkedIn to the core HR system, and how more and more information can be pushed through that. That is one. Second is purely on the customer servicing and customer engagement side. A lot of social platforms, which is the third row from top on the left hand side, which is Instagram, Facebook, and even others also. They are being used for customer information as well as customer servicing and integrated to the backend CRM systems and omni-channel call centers. So yes, integration sort of is very very deep, and me as one of the CTOs for financial services industry, uh, sort of look out for this space far more. And one can't imagine a world where we are not connected to the external B2B, B2C apps.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's where the true power of integration is. And since you actually touched upon the service side of the service CRMs of the world, I think all these applications, they would be generating lots of I'll say questions. They would be generating lots of queries in from an end user perspective. And Gaurav, as we have already discussed from today's webinar perspective, we are going to actually use the service platform as the core discussion point. And without a further delay, I would request Aditi to actually do a quick poll, and then we'll take it forward. Aditi?
Sure, Tarun. There would be a poll on your screens right now. I would request you please take a moment and answer the question. Thank you so much, everyone. Tarun, you can please proceed.
Thanks, Aditi. I think the poll is actually awesome. And we have around 7% people actually responding that they have zero integrations at their workplace. But almost 50% of the people have actually responded and said 47% they have almost around anywhere up to 25 integrations already implemented. 27% of the people are saying between 25 to 50, and more than 20% are saying that they have got integrations on count on an upward of 50. So if you actually look at 93% response, people are already having integrations implementation at their place. That's awesome. And I think this also resonates to the topic that integration is the cornerstone from a data, I'll say, uh, both data delivery perspective as well as information access perspective, and making the entire business workflow happen. Let me move on to the actually the role of a CTO in an organization. I think most of us would relate to a CTO as a person who's actually a business enabler. Uh, a CTO in today's context is actually responsible for tons of data which is getting generated within the organization ecosystem, whether it is from external entities or internal business processes. And the CTO actually need to really ensure that a lot of innovation from data users perspective or data access perspective is already there in place, which enables the business heads or the business people within the setup to very easily and effectively use the platforms or the applications which are currently running inside the organization. Most important role a CTO would be playing would be a business leader, uh, strategizing the digital transformation or the digital practice within the organization, as well as ensuring that all the systems are actually available on demand and 24 cross 7. Most of the important aspect a CTO actually plays is the an equivalent of a chief operating officer, but from a IT perspective. And that's a very huge role and a responsibility a CTO carries on his or her shoulder in order to ensure a smooth working integrated application landscape. Gaurav, again, definitely this is what we think from a CTO perspective, but there will be more to it. What is your view from your role as a CTO at LTFS?
Right, Tarun. So let me just have two initial comments and then probably I'll talk in detail. One is which of the personas a CTO ends up playing uh, is a function of where that company or that industry is in their maturity level. Because if at initial levels you end up using technology purely as a operational lever where you automate some of your processes, in which case it would be CTO as a business enabler. You would end up automating some workflows, your business processes, your documentation and all of that. As industries mature, as people, as an organization sort of get to use the power of technology, CTO's role shifts from business enabler more as a chief operating officer, because all the internal processes of our organization, or rather, I would say most, if not all, are IT enabled. Whether it is your contact center, whether it is your internal business operations, whether it is your credit decisioning engine, anything, whether it is your financial reporting, any internal process, HR, salary, all of that is IT enabled, and hence the CTO, as more and more automation happens, end up being responsible for all the operational activities, and hence with a more mature organization, it ends up being the pseudo chief operating officer, not just for IT, I would say, even for large parts of the organization. Because if that does not work, any of the processes does not work, then operations of a company are at stake. Uh, in the advanced stages, and this is what we have seen in the last 2 decades, uh, uh, we are finding that most of the innovation are tech enabled, and not just tech enabled, they are more like coming from the tech industry, because that is where the renaissance is going on. And hence, CTO is also tasked in some organizations as coming up with new ideas, new innovations, and thoughts on how even not just operationally, but on strategic initiatives. What kind of products to launch, what should be the go-to-market strategy, what also could be, a product design and architecture. So all of that, when that happens to a company or industry, the CTO ends up being the IT innovator, and why this IT innovator, the innovator per se. And finally, I guess the arrival point is that a lot of organizations now have digital as a standalone channel with its own PNL. And because the channel is completely enabled end to end, whether it is from sales, service, partnership, distribution, whatever you say, is tech enabled, the CTO ends up being a business leader as well. So I guess this is more of a continuum of how organizations and industries are maturing and understanding the power of technology and how we applying it. The second comment, which I had made, Tarun, when we were talking earlier, is that given that we have been part of the industry for substantial time, it actually looks like my CV, because as the industry is maturing, as we are also maturing as professionals, one has played most of these roles. So yeah, very familiar slide.
Awesome, Gaurav. I think you have really touched upon I'll say all the 360-degree aspect of a role of a CTO and what you are actually currently playing. I think that is a very demanding and a challenging role, as well as it's, I think, very exciting and interesting. And since we are discussing integration, I think it's very imperative if we look at integration from a perspective of anything, anywhere, anytime. Uh, I think that is where probably the world has moved. It has already reached a stage from a traditional way of integration, which could be very simple uh, system A to system B, like a file based or a data from payroll dispersal to using a bank's portal or a bank's platform uh, to application or a business to business integrations. I think these there have been integration in the past. If you look at the core banking system running on mainframes, they got integrated with the credit card processing systems using a lot of high-end technology, which was pretty expensive. But just look at the startups today, which are leveraging the latest platform of the cloud or software as a service platforms to really provide a very end user rich experience from accessing the data, accessing the platforms, or accessing the applications. And obviously, when we look at from a traditional perspective, we have got lots of forecasting or analytics already being there. But now the analytics space actually is moving towards more of a predictive analytics, where a lot of automations and a lot of new technology is actually making, let's say, a buyer decision onto, let's say, a e-commerce website instantaneous by enticing the buyer that, okay, if you buy this, I'll probably give you one or two extra, let's say, freebies, or there will be discounts. So that predictive analytics is also coming into a big play. And obviously, the latest I'll say AI or ML type of I'll say integrations, I'll call them, or platforms, they will actually evolve and are evolving by providing access as well as prediction to the business in a traditional way, but into a more evolved way. So, Gaurav, what is your take on universal integration in today's world?
Right, Tarun. Yeah, I think so. This is a very interesting take on how integration has evolved and is evolving. And the way I get to see it is that traditionally we have seen integration as within your data center, within your application ecosystem, how two applications talk to each other, how two modules talk to each other, how data sharing happens between your various applications in a data center. The only extension to that was that we always had some banking partners to whom we would exchange files. And we would also have some operational partners. You may have a BPO or you may have a call center to whom also you would do data sharing. But large part of traditional integration has been within your data center, various systems talking to each other. And that is what the erstwhile system integrators, TCS, Infosys, and all of those sort of moved in and capitalized on. Now, when you come to the below part of the slide, which is the evolving one, this is really where uh, what has happened is that a lot of capabilities, core capabilities, which were earlier built in-house, are now being made by these so-called fintech vendors or insurtech vendors, or a lot of these startups. These capabilities could be like finding a lot of surrogate data for a customer. This could be about enabling e-signature. This could be about getting income statements for a customer, or various financial documents or tax returns and all. Now, these are core capabilities which are now sitting outside the organization, and the organization needs to tap into it, right? And hence, now the integration, which is more and more relevant and which is evolving, is where you are extending and augmenting your capabilities. Uh, and those, I gave some examples. Capabilities could be getting a richer data. Capability could also be one of the key things which is happening is, let's say, OCR, which is a live OCR, which is a very, sort of leveraging the advanced cognitive learning abilities, right? Also, it is about, let's say, live photo capture. So a lot of those things, which is capability augmentation, is what is evolving. And like Tarun, you mentioned, what is also happening is that more and more devices are coming up, IoT is coming up. So essentially, how do you integrate with those devices, and the various modes by which a consumer is sort of looking at his data. So you also integrate that. So yeah, I mean, if I could summarize it, traditionally integration has been about two systems talking to each other, but of late, what is evolving is where integration is a mechanism to augment capabilities within your system. So yeah.
I think yeah, that's I think a really a very nice way to put, like you are augmenting the actual real capabilities of the platforms through integration. And very true. I think in order to really discuss further on this, we have a very interesting use case, which is the integration platform for seamless service lifecycle. See, we have seen so many apps, we have seen so many platforms in our first slide. I think all of these would be generating a lot of service requests, whether it is through, whether it could be coming from customer, it would, that service request would get registered at a call center. Your partners, which are could be agents or DSAs, or any vendor could be a partner. They would be requesting for, let's say, a status on a payment or status on an invoice. The entire sales force, which could be internal and external both. You could have an internal sales force on the ground. You could outsource inside sales force to some third party. All those service requests would be coming in. From a bank perspective, there would be a lot of requests coming from the payment reconciliations, the payment processing platforms. The corporates will definitely have a lot of branches spread across. So everywhere, whether it is internal and employee facing, or it could be a customer facing, or it could be partner facing, lot of service requests coming into any enterprise world today. And and this entire application or servicing of this service request needs to have access to the requester. So it could be through a mobility application. It could uh, uh, leverage across multiple industries, and there could be a lot of localization aspect in terms of payment types, in terms of legal compliances, in terms of language characteristics. So lots of stuff actually really goes into receiving a request and then eventually servicing and closing it. And in most of the places, you would definitely require that these service requests needs to be collated for from a quality, from an SLA, from a standardization, as well as from typically providing the root cause analysis or an RCA on some very critical service requests which could be there. And eventually, we end up integrating all these service requests to various platforms, which could be banking platform, which could be all the ERPs of the world. It could be Oracle EBS, SAP, JD Edwards. It could be a CRM as simple as Salesforce or Dynamics CRM. And obviously, payment gateways are the core today. And you'll be rather, I don't know how many of you would be following up the UPI and the Beam UPI payment gateway. If you look at, we are already crossing billions of transactions on that platform. And that's a very classical example of integration by integrating a end consumer payment lifecycle with their core bank account, and there are dozens of core banking systems in the background. So that's a very awesome platform which is already there. So Gaurav, I think I would definitely request you to throw some insights on the entire service lifecycle. What is your take on this?
Right, Tarun. So again, Tarun, this is one subject which I am particularly sort of fond of, and in my earlier experience as when I found a startup, this was one of the use cases which I particularly focused on. I believe what is unique about a service center, especially if it is omni-channel, is that this is the holy grail of all integrations, right? Because on one side you've got various kind of users. It could be customers, it could be agents, it could be your partners. Anybody essentially who has a service for the organization to sort of cater to, or it could even be not just a service but could be a complaint or whatever. And on the other side, they could come from as many channels. They could walk into a branch, they could actually have a mobile app, they could go to a portal. Then there is a call center, there is IVR, and there are SMS-based short codes. So there are multiple ways by which multiple of these people can come in and ask a query, ask a service request. The service center is right in the middle of it, where it should be capable enough to answer all of that. And to be able to answer such a various set of use cases, it has to integrate with pretty much everything which the organization caters to. It has to integrate with its core systems, whether it is a loan management system, whether it is your core policy admin system, whether it is your incentive management system, whether it is your ticket management system. It could also be your ERP for payments, whether they have happened or not. It would also be your HRMS. So anything which you have is going to be integrated to the service center, because there is no other way otherwise you can cater to such a humongous use case. And the one in particular which I was going after in a startup is that we were trying to build a more like a universal service center which would cater to any kind of service request which an average customer would have, which is across various organizations. And hence our problem was far more complicated, because not only were we going to front end one organization or one industry, it was across. And I guess that's the reason why also we didn't do well. But yeah, it is extremely complex problem to solve. And I think if anybody who does a good job of enabling servicing to your end users, a lot of things have to be done. Data has to be moved around, services need to be enabled, transaction needs to be scaled up, workflow engines needs to be developed. Pretty much, you end up touching each and everything. So yeah, it's a very complex use case, but is the most important one. And I belong to financial services. Services is the part and the name of the industry. So yeah, this is bread and butter.
Yeah, Gaurav, I think you have really put the right perspective from an integration perspective. But yes, service request actually or the service life cycle is actually the bread and butter for every organization. And rather, most of it would relate to the ads which are coming today from Airtel. They would like to bring their service request calls to zero. I think that's the focus the corporates or the enterprises are having on the service request. Rather, even Path, we at Path have got a solution called a Serviteam CRM, and there we have integrated lots of stuff like WhatsApp integration has been done, Alexa integration for IoT devices have been done. We are currently integrating Google Home products with IoT devices. Yeah, there's a huge play from integration in the service lifecycle. I'll say process, or maybe it's a. I think I'll call it, Gaurav. I think I'll call this as a huge business process, which has become now the heart of any enterprise. Would you relate with that?
No, completely, Tarun. I guess as more and more products are commoditizing, service is the differentiator. And if you want to provide best-in-class service as an organization, you need to have a best-in-class service center. So yes, it is the differentiator with more and more products sort of being of same caliber.
Absolutely. Awesome. Gaurav, I think looking at this service side, my next question to would be is uh, it's actually data exchange, right? So using integration, what best practices you would suggest that people should adopt or the enterprise should adopt for data delivery, where integration becomes the backbone for it?
So, Tarun, actually, I'll be preaching to the choir. I'm sure everybody on the webinar sort of knows this, but I'll at least bring out two, three things which, I've been first-hand experiencing and this one. One is the more we use the ready adapters for integration, uh, the better maintenance and sort of ease of, or rather, foolproof it is. Uh, I have seen multiple examples where one has tried to extend the out-of-box adapters and then ended up discovering issues at a very critical point in time. So, and let me just give an example from my current organization. So, what we do is that one of our USP is that we are able to decision alone, we are able to do a credit decisioning for a two-wheeler loan within 40 seconds, provided all the data is entered. And that decisioning essentially implies at least 40 to 45 integrations, both internal and external, which means that for that customer, all the way from getting his data from a credit bureau to getting his income statements and then passing it through internal systems, which is a credit decisioning system, taking output and then running various checks and any fraud. All of that essentially is that. And for such a complex machinery to work stably, you need to sort of remain on the out of the box sockets wherever it is available and sort of change as less as possible. That is one. Second is, I guess, microservices has been something which everybody has spoken to death, but not really implemented. But I think for a right set of integration, microservices is a must simply because otherwise, one of the things which falls is performance. Uh, if you are not able to provide a response to integration in the right time, it sort of bombs. And microservices is pretty much the answer to scalability, and scalability directly translates to performance. So I would say more and more, I guess the shift has been from monolithic to APIs and now from APIs to microservices. But microservices is an architectural play, and I guess it's still probably a decade before all the systems will start to adopt it. That is the second practice I'm seeing, and third, and I guess most important from where I stand in financial services is security. So, how do you ensure that all the integrations are secure? Nobody's able to listen on the pipe in between and interrupt it because otherwise you end up providing either wrong data or data to the wrong guy. So, these are two, three things which come to mind. Uh, uh, The purely tech angle to that, I guess if that is one of the things which you want to look into, is that initially there have been file-based data sharing, and then we moved to ETL tools, and then subsequently we moved to adapters. So I guess that is the continuum, and we are yet to see sort of more on that. Tarun, is that the angle you wanted to take, or was it something different?
No, I think that is definitely the need of the hour today. I think yes, obviously we have a lot of off-the-shelf products available where we can use it for moving the data from one place to another. Absolutely, you actually touch base on the security aspect, and that probably is my next question to you. Uh, how do you actually ensure the availability and the security of the data 24 cross 7? uh, how do you actually really relate that this data is actually available on demand or always in real time? Gaurav, what is your experience with this?
Yeah. So Tarun, I'll take availability first. And see, availability in a traditional situation has been about how your underlying systems are highly available. How do you have redundancy there? And there is regular data replication. But now, as we saw in one of the earlier slides, a lot of integration is happening outside your data center. So this is something which I face on a day-to-day basis, that we are relying on external service to, let's say, get some income details for a customer, and that service is down. How do you ensure availability to your end consumer? And one of the things we are discovering is that uh, like you have high availability for internal applications, uh, for external integrations, you need to have redundancy and failovers. What it means is that we have as a policy adopted that wherever we are relying on a third party integration, we will always have a failover to another one, and it has to be a auto switch in case one of those services, one of those partners go down. And why that is there is because we have seen that because the fintech world and the startup world is also evolving. There are frequent outages, and hence one need to cater to that. So availability is more of uh, a redundancy and a failover solve from external integrations, and from internal, of course, it is high availability and data replication. Security, of course, again, I'm really not an expert in this area, but security is extremely key, and depending on the medium and the mode of data integration, one needs to apply the right security aspects to it. If it is file transfer, how do you ensure that there is a checksum? If it is the API, how do you ensure that the traffic is encrypted and appropriately the encryption mechanism is of right potency? So all of that essentially is it sort of varies from uh, what is the mode of data transfer or integration which one is using.
Absolutely, Gaurav. I think, yeah, security definitely plays a huge role, and with lots of privacy and compliances coming from region-specific things, especially in the fintech and the space, in the insurance industry that you are in. I think you definitely have a uphill, I'll say, task, or rather, you have got a lot of stuff already implemented at your place. But definitely, when the data is actually moving from one place to another, we need to ensure that it is rightly encrypted, it is actually transportable in a way that it's hidden inside a capsule or something, in a, let's say, augmented reality type of a capsule, and it is moving where the receiver has the key to open it. So I think that's definitely a very interesting aspect, but it is, I think, one of the core or the foundation of reliable, I'll say, data transfer or data availability across various subsystems. But the next question Gaurav probably would like to discuss is, with integration in place. I have definitely seen that it has provided huge agility for the business, uh, for making decisions which could be instantaneous. And rather, you have already given a very interesting use case where for a two-wheeler loan, you probably provide a approval or a soft approval or whatever you call it in a lending parlance within 40 seconds or less than a minute or so. I think that's a very empowering, I'll say, outcome of integration happening across. You mentioned around 30 to 40 systems. I think that's very interesting, and I would definitely would like for our audience here to share more insights on integration making better decision making for the enterprise.
Right. So, what we are seeing is agility is sort of coming from three aspects, mostly driven by integration. One is how can you make data entry faster, more agile, right? And that is coming by integrating with a lot of OCR technologies, or even I would say, visual recognition, cognitive as it is called, by which, instead of entering data or typing in data, you can take the Aadhaar card and essentially sort of with image of it, you are able to get a lot of background data and people don't have to enter it. And likewise, even for other details, whether it is passport, whether it could also be a picture of the customer. So cognitive and OCR technologies and integration, because most of it is now you don't build these technologies, you integrate with them because these capabilities are best developed outside by experts. So that is one which has helped. Second, which has also helped with the agility of decision making is how can you have a lot of masters available, because and again it is linked with data entries that one sees that decision making is slow, not because data is not there to make a decision. Decision making is slow because data is at times not reliable or even not accurate, right? So if the address itself is not right, or sometimes even names and so on and so forth. So if you have a address master, if you have a pin code master, and there are so many of these masters now, there is a property master. As more and more digitization is happening in India, more masters are becoming available. One is able to integrate with them, and hence the data reliability and accuracy is going up quite a few notches. So that is also sort of helping with quicker decision making and agility there. And third, and the most traditional one is the whole rule engines, right? If you integrate with the right rule engines, they are sophisticated, and then machine learning and models are also available for various scenarios. So you integrate with them, and then you are able to sort of take decisions. But otherwise, if you were to configure them or you were to do those decisions manually, it sort of would still remain discretionary. So yeah, the way we are doing here in my current organization is that we just provide two outputs: either the loan is sanctioned or it is not. We don't give a counter offer, and that we realize is the best way to move fast enough, because customer always has multiple options and counter offers do not have that kind of a success rate. So I think the quicker you sort of relieve the customer that it is a yes or no, the faster his decision making also is. So yeah, that is where I see this angle.
Yeah, I think Gaurav, I fully agree with you what you have just mentioned. I think definitely uh, ensuring that you have a predictable decision and you are actually servicing it in the shortest time frame. I think that makes the entire process more, I'll say, agile, as well as it relates to the customer satisfaction and the user experience also. Gaurav, with paucity of time, a very quick question on uh, how do you see the cost savings you have got, or your thoughts on that from a efficiency increase perspective by integrating all our systems?
Yeah, so I think if you look at the organization level, there is a clear linkage of integration with cost saving, simply because, as we were saying, integration is really a capability augmentation nowadays, right? And in the erstwhile world, this capability would have been a human capability. Now it is more of an automated thing. And traditionally, the cost of a human effort and the rework involved in case of a human error is more. So purely at an operational level, I think clearly integration is providing better capabilities with a lesser number of errors. So there is a direct linkage. Then of course, I think there is far more to cost, or more like opportunity advantage by integration, where you are able to do a lot more, which otherwise you would not have been able to. So I think which is the indirect cost saving, if I could say. So I think this one has been beaten to death. All of us are seeing this sort of play multiple times now. Integration is a very important and a very key lever for cost efficiency.
Absolutely. Gaurav, I 100% relate with you, and a lot of automation platforms like UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and others, they're also bringing a different aspect of efficiency in our landscape, and they also need to be integrated with our application. So definitely, I could relate with for the audience itself. Integration is the cornerstone, and I would definitely say, Gaurav, you actually mentioned about data being entered in a more automated way. Rather, I'll probably say forecasting today is we are actually moving towards a zero data entry system. All the data would be entered automatically. It would be either OCR or it would be through integration will capture the data. And we just need to have some decisions or something happening which provides a very rich end user experience to our customers and to our partners. So Aditi, I think back to you. We are open for Q&A, and let's take a couple of questions here. And we know that we have just overshot our time by almost 3, 4, or 5 minutes, but let's have some question answers.
Sure, Tarun. Thank you so much, Tarun and Gaurav, for such a wonderful session. We'll now go ahead and take some time for questions now. Just a reminder to everyone, please be sure to type your questions in the question box available in your control panel. We'll take a pause over here and till the time the questions are being populated. So Tarun and Gaurav, we have some questions put up by the audience. So one of the audience wants to know how secure is file-based integration.
Can you repeat that? File-based integration? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I guess Tarun, we have some technical issues. Could you hear us properly?
Yeah, that's security on file-based integration. Gaurav,
Correct, correct.
I'll actually probably spend a few seconds on this. See, file-based integrations have become pretty secure as of today with a lot of enablements or a lot of technology environment which is coming. Especially, uh, we can have a secure FTP. We can use lots of tools like remote access, RSH, and all those. And underlying that, we can actually transfer the files using TLS 1.2 or even above encryption environments. So file-based is definitely secure, and it entirely depends upon how you are uploading the file, and the receiving system have got all the security or SSL technologies in place. Gaurav, you would like to share something on this?
No, Tarun, I think you have rightly captured. I guess file base is still the predominant way, especially with your banking partners, because you end up sharing not just a single grain of data, but bulk of data, for which APIs or other services are really not that useful. And it is as secure as any other mode. And I guess it is up to us, which all modes and means or mechanisms we want to use. But clearly, I don't see this waning away in the future, because wherever you are doing bulk data sharing, file based is the predominant one.
Yeah. Aditi, next question.
Thank you, Tarun and Gaurav. I hope this answers the question. We have Mr. Abhishek appreciating the session. Very good session. I joined in late. Any idea how can I get the recording of the session? So, Tarun, I'll take up this question. Mr. Abhishek, we'll be sharing the recording of the session post this webinar with you over the mail. So, be patient. We'll share it across. Yeah. Tarun, we have next question as Gaurav mentioned about the bulk uploading scenario. So they want to understand, will there be any issue while doing bulk uploading of transactional data?
I think that the
Or what
issue is
issues
not
can be phased out? Yeah.
Yeah, issue is not on bulk uploading of transactional data. I think what Gaurav also mentioned from a security aspect, I think most of the traditional integration is actually file based or bulk upload. But I think what you need to do is maybe time it out or do it in chunks. Maybe you can do it one set now and then wait for an update and then do another set after some time. Maybe using some sort of a scheduler or a job which can actually upload this data onto the receiving side uh, and create a governance mechanism around it. See, uploading of the data or transfer of data is actually no issue or it's not a challenge at all. It's actually how you actually govern it, what security keys you are using, what type of transfer mechanism you are using, what type of a network you are using. So if you are able to govern in terms of who has got access, how much data got transferred, whether data is what you send is what you receive. I think those areas you need to really focus. And sometimes, yes, data throttle or throttling can happen, but I think your system should be intuitive enough to identify the throttle and maybe resend the data if it is not received properly. I think Gaurav, this is what I would probably relate to bulk upload of data.
I completely agree with you, Tarun. I think you've rightly captured.
Yeah,
Thank you so much,
Aditi.
Tarun and Gaurav. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Tarun, we have a next question coming up as to what governance or monitoring compliance has to be, taken up for any of the integration platform.
Okay,
Has to be kept in mind. Yeah.
I just actually mentioned that governing and monitoring would be, I think, most important aspect is first of all is creating a framework where you actually create a checksum. Let's use a very simple thing. You should have a checksum of the data before sending. You should have checksum related to if there are numbers or numerical data within the data that you are sending. Probably you can do a count of or a sum or something like that, so that when you receive the data, you also provide the same checksum and it gets authenticated and validated. So at least you ensure that the data what is sent is the data what you're receiving. The second aspect is at what time and what physical machines are sending. So maybe you can actually set up a tunnel between these two machines, which could be a very secure way of sending data. That is another governance which could be there. From a monitoring perspective, I think it is typically you need to ensure that who's sending it, when it is being sent, when it is being received, and whether the data is correct or not. I think these are the three critical areas that you probably need to monitor and just send this monitoring data into some sort of a real-time monitoring engine, and then you can create some dashboard or a monitoring platform around it. I think Gaurav, I think that makes sense.
No, it does, Tarun. I think, yeah, I'm again not finding anything additional to add. Monitoring your data sharing through, ensuring that the jobs are run when desired and they are successfully executed, and there is a definite completeness and comprehensiveness to that. So that sort of governs it.
Yeah, I think one important area from monitoring would be, as Gaurav just now mentioned, is if a particular job has failed, so you can auto retry it or maybe put it into some sort of a review queue, and then somebody actually takes a look at it and identify the root cause why the job has failed. I think those are very, I would still say traditional way of doing things, but now we have got a lot of open source platforms where we can actually do a real-time ingestion of data in a platform like Kafka and all that, and then actually create some monitoring engine around it. Back to you, Aditi.
Okay. Yeah, Tarun, I hope this answers the question. We also have a question from Aarti. She is actually mentioning that the slides that you have actually mentioned, or are you referring, is very detailed and complete. Is it possible to view these slides offline as well? So I hope, Tarun, we can share this, content that we have actually shared across in this webinar with the participants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Aditi, you
Sure.
can go ahead and share the content. I think, yeah, you can definitely share it. Yes.
Absolutely. So, Aarti, we'll be sharing the content with you so for your futuristic perspective. And with this, this is all the time we had for the question answer round. We will address the remaining questions one-on-one post this webinar. If you have any further questions for us, kindly do email us and we will reply to you. My email ID is there on your screens right now. It's aditi, aditi.rastogi at pathinfotech.com. And with that, we end this webinar. Thank you, Tarun and Gaurav, for this informative session. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time and joining us. We appreciate you being here. We have more webinars coming in future, and if you are interested to be part of our upcoming webinar in the series, please do sign up on our website, LinkedIn, and other social media platforms for more information. Once again, thank you so much for joining. We will see you next time.
Thank you, Aditi. Thanks, Gaurav.
Thank you. Thanks, Tarun. Thanks everybody on the call.
Thank you.